And we're live. All right. Well, welcome people to another episode of Real Talk. Today, I have Meaghan Ziemba on with us. I think I ran into her on the LinkedIn world. We're both in the kind of manufacturing engineering world. And I was very curious what she was doing and what she's doing to the world and putting out content, educating people, and also the women in manufacturing. She does a lot of fascinating and innovative things for the industry moving forward in this data rail technology realm. And I'm really glad to have her on. So welcome, Meaghan.
Thanks, Rob. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little about yourself. Tell us a little about just a quick about yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, so my name is Meaghan Ziemba, like you mentioned before, and I'm actually a tech writer for industrial manufacturing. I started writing for manufacturing back in 2008 for a trade publication that focused on product design and development. And after that whole stitch in my career, I ended up in multiple marketing positions for different manufacturers. So I've worked with a bearing company, an additive manufacturing company, a CNC machining company, and really fell in love with just industrial manufacturing and how things are made and what value they provide to everybody like us in our everyday lives and how they make our lives more simple. And 2 years ago, I decided to start my own company called Zink Solutions and also start a live video broadcast series called Mavens of Manufacturing, which focuses on the women within engineering and manufacturing. And what drives me today is really just trying to inspire that next generation workforce because, as you know, in manufacturing, we are facing this industrial skills gap. And we really need to figure out how we can get the younger generation excited again and have them pursue career pathways in our sector.
That's exactly why we connected and the process, what I've seen you're doing. And it's fascinating coming from a tech writer, right? From a tech writer, you're being curious, understanding technology and actually simplifying it. I mean, you can explain it to an engineer standpoint, but to simplify it to the normal, simple human to understand what is going on in technology because we have that big gap, just like you say. There's a succession issue we're having of labor, and there's also a gap of what is technology, what is manufacturing, what is supply chain, how does products work, how do the hardware, because again, our industry is in mainstream media every single day the last couple of years because of what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's exciting.
it is really exciting. It's also scary too, because if you think about it, if we don't start strengthening our foundation in manufacturing again, it is a national security threat. We're falling behind the rest of the world, and you don't really want to do that. If you want to remain a thriving country that has great opportunities, you really need to have that strong manufacturing base. So I'm really passionate about getting the younger generations excited. And if I can change one mind, that's a great, great step for me.
I echo everything you said. I love it. So tell us a little about like the Z Inc. So you're from tech writing and started Z Inc. So right now, do you write for publications? What is Z Inc. doing right now?
So I do a variety of different things. I do some ghostwriting for people who are in the sector that don't have very phenomenal writing skills, but they have a lot of great ideas and they want to share those ideas. So I have a couple clients who, put out blog posts every month. Their name is on the content, but it's actually me helping them organize those ideas and writing it out for them. So kind of like what book editors and book publishers do for most of these people who are coming out with books. I also do product releases and press releases for different companies. I've written white papers before. Some of the other things that I have coming up are ebooks and product brochures. And then I do a lot of site audits as well too. So I'll review company websites and let them know, hey, this is really easy for me to retain. However, this is really difficult for me to navigate. So giving them suggestions and recommendations on what they can do to really optimize their websites so that it's easier for their customers to navigate through. And then I also offer recommendations on who they can connect with in terms of updating some of those things on their website, because I am not a web developer by any means, but I've worked with enough websites to know what is user friendly and what's not. So I have a lot of connections within the industry that they can take advantage of and get, a great website lined up and help serving their customers a lot quicker and faster.
Exactly. So you come in again. the new generation consultation to companies in the traditional manufacturing supply chain industry who are not so innovative, understand what does the future demand, what's going on, helping them develop their business, brand and process and what they're trying to achieve, and connecting them with them. Connecting, creating connections for them to really bring them to the next level, to this 21st generation of what we're living in.
Yeah.
Because again, it's all about presence, data that's in the marketplace, and really where you stand to build that visibility to credibility that can create your opportunity.
Because content creation is becoming a priority more and more with industrial manufacturers. Back in the day, they weren't so great at marketing themselves because it was all, trying to push their sales outward. And now it's more of that inbound marketing where they really need to get connected on a human level with their customers and show what value that they provide. But it can't be in, sales lingo. It has to be more humanizing and more authentic and transparent. So it's interesting to see that shift in marketing and helping, this old school sector kind of catch up with what some of the marketing trends are.
Rehumanizing the manufacturing business.
Yeah.
On that end, there is a lot. Myself, I've been in this industry. My father started our business 40 plus years ago, and now I'm the succession of it, and I've seen it change. And I've
Hmm.
been coming to the industry, come technology bound, really forward thinking, and putting ourselves where the people are at. Because what we see in the last couple decades, like sales and marketing, were separate. Especially in big
Yeah.
corporations, they're completely disconnected. Marketing does their job, sales do their job, and a lot of hardware companies, or just in electronics in general, or manufacturing, they don't have the sales. They had sales representatives. They didn't really have sales teams. They extended that to sales reps who designed in their product or to print, and the marketing
Hmm.
was just giving them white papers or data sheets, and they were just some brand logos. And yeah, this was very old school, traditional. And in this last 2 decades of the 2000 to 2022, everything has changed because of the World Wide Web and the connectivity.
Yep.
It's made the world much smaller. But again, it's what
Hmm.
you say, it's rehumanizing. It's like we all have to change. We all have to pivot. We all have to go into what we're trying to achieve and who we're trying to reach.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, no one wants to be sold to anymore. They want to be educated. They want to make their own decisions. They want to have control of, who they're making those connections with and what types of relationships they're building with their companies. So you can't just really cold call someone anymore and just pitch to them right away. You really have to educate them on what your services are, what your products are, and the value that it gives to them so that then they can compare it to someone else that they're researching and then come to a decision on their own.
And excuse me, you have to build that
Yeah,
brand awareness,
absolutely.
not just with the company brand, but also the personal brand, to rehumanize themselves. That the salesperson isn't just the company; they're actually their own brand. You can trust them. They can create awareness, create content, and again, I think from the consumer standpoint, our whole world has changed between how we engage content, and we're all very but are very video heavy now. Everything's video, even
Yeah.
our from the TV streaming to YouTube's to the social medias and the Instagrams and then now the TikToks and all these things that are around
Yeah.
there. It's got us engaged, and it keeps that dopamine levels in us, and we just keep going like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and like it gets us engaged, and that's really where we're getting it. Not a lot of people read as much as they used to. They listen more.
Right.
They don't open catalogs as much as they used to. And
Mm-mm.
that new generation that you said, even the new generation coming into the industry, the Z generation that's coming in, they their source of truth is social media and the internet.
Yeah.
If you're not read, you're dead. Literally, if you're not on the internet, you're kind of dead. If you're not brand, you're dead. And that's I love that you're coming in and trying to really um rehumanize that and reinvent that and educate your customers to really take it to the next level and what they need to do to be modernized in this day and age.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because I remember when I started out in the trade publication industry, I recommended us starting a Facebook page, and there was pushback. No, that's not professional. They're not going to take us serious if we're on Facebook. And all of a sudden it became the new trend. Well, now it's the same conversations around Snapchat and TikTok. So why on earth would I be on TikTok? No, it's unprofessional. No one's going to see us there. But that's where the next generation is. The next generation is glued to their phone. They're spending hours scrolling through these, silly videos that I find myself getting addicted to as well. So they really need to start strategizing how they can create these fun, memorable, short bits of information on this channel. Because if you want to recruit the next generation, that's where you need to start, in my opinion. They're all on TikTok. And I do see manufacturing companies starting to experiment with that channel, and they are gaining traction. So if you want to get ahead of them, you need to start thinking, okay, well, how can I present my brand on TikTok and do what some of these other companies are doing? Because those companies are already ahead of you and they're gaining traction. They're getting people to recognize who their brand are, and they're starting to get comments and likes and all that other stuff that people don't think is important, but they're starting to make a memory in the next generation. And when the next generation comes up and they're looking for a job, those brands on TikTok that they remember are going to be the companies that they pursue. So that's just food for thought.
That's like a mic drop moment right there.
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. Yeah. I love that vision, and you nailed it. So thank you for that. And that's something that I try to preach myself. And it's hard because it's also resistant to change what's going on in the industry. And
Mm-hmm.
but again, it's building awareness. You start just like you change one person's life or two people's life or give them perspective. That's all we're there for, is to make a difference and make a change. And I cannot be more excited for collaborating with you and really going over and sharing this, because I think we can do a lot because we have the same vision of changing
Yeah.
the industry and making it relevant again, making it
And
exciting
cool,
and
like
cool. Yeah,
Nike.
yeah, exactly. Bringing in the new generation, like, hey, hardware for us, like manufacturing hardware is sexy. It's not just all about software, guys. The hardware is sexy and it's fun. And
Yeah.
we're and how I also explain it is like the industry, we are the hardware, the foundation of manufacturing and hardware engineering. We're changing the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're saving lives through technology. We're sending rockets up in the air. We are have count aerospace defense. We're creating electronic vehicles. We're going, into industrial telecommunications. We have cell phones. We have the IoT of the cloud. That's all basis is hardware. So
Yeah.
we're making a difference. And I also telling that to the older generation that, hey guys, just don't sell the product. Like, be celebrate what we've done in the last 2 years and technology that everybody's using. You're making a difference of changing people's lives. If you look like you have a purpose, that you're a salesperson for a specific product, a component, or manufacturer, you are making a difference in the world the way we live today, advancing the humanity to what it is. And we're at that exponential growth rate that there's no stopping us right now.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's interesting too because some engineers don't understand the excitement of smaller components, because not everybody sees the smaller components in some of these larger components that we're familiar with. So, that rocket ship that, is going to the moon, or some of these technologies that are going to get us to Mars, they're made up of smaller, tiny components that we don't see up front. And getting to that root and making it known that, hey, this wouldn't be possible without those itty bitty components, I think is another way to look at it as well too, because without those smaller components, we wouldn't be able to reach big heights. So how do we market that and make it exciting? And there's a lot of things going on in aerospace that are really exciting. There's a lot of things going on in automation that are really exciting. The vehicles that we have, I think the last stat that I heard, there's like around 30 or 40,000 components in a car now, where that wasn't possible before. And it's all because of the electronic stuff that we're incorporating in the car. Like, that is fascinating. Like, where are these components? Because when I get in my car, that's not what I'm thinking of. I don't know the itty bitty parts that are involved with it.
So
And
I'll
I
give
think
you
that's
a
cool.
little stat. Right now, the semiconductors are number four, the highest traded, or components in general. It's number four in the highest traded commodities. You would say semiconductors. They're saying within 5 years, it's going to hit number one. So you
It
imagine,
might
yeah,
be shorter than that.
yeah, it might
you
be
know.
shorter. It depends on where we have a supply and demand issue, which is something I want to jump
Hmm.
in with you, because I know you're working with a lot of people in an industry and working with them and hearing what's actually on the ground, like the soldiers on the ground, the challenges. So like on with what are you hearing? What do you get from your customers and the data that you're taking in? What are you seeing happening in the supply chain and manufacturing and the big shortages? And where do you see some positives or some of the negatives that some of these companies are facing right
So with the supply chain issues, I mean, everybody's having a really hard time getting what they need when they want it. And there's a couple companies that I have talked to where, they had a back order of a certain amount, and now that back order has actually like tripled or quadrupled. So they're going to be really busy for a really long time. And once the supply chain issues go away, whenever they do go away, they're going to probably have a hard time catching up with all of those orders, because right now I think their lead times went from like 3 or 4 weeks to now 8 to 9 or 10 weeks even. I've
now? That's
heard
pretty good.
stories.
8 to 9. That's pretty good because right now you were going like people like 4 weeks to 40 weeks. That
Yeah, or
they're
even. Yeah, so I mean, it depends on what you're creating and what you're producing. That's going to determine and where you're getting it from. A lot of people are trying to reach out to these companies who can promise, yeah, we can find the product and get it to you, but now they're having a hard time keeping up with that promise because they themselves can't find those products. And once they do find it, it goes off the shelf right away because everybody wants it. In terms of like metals, I heard that copper is really hard to get a hold of now. And just, things like that we've taken for granted that was really easy to get, we can't get anymore. So then, how do you adjust? What partnerships do you need? In terms of like acquisitions and mergers, I heard it's a great time to acquire smaller companies because of the costs that are involved. So after, inflation, it might not be as easy to acquire a company because the price is going to jack up. Um, but yeah, I mean, it just depends on what area you're in what you're producing and providing, or what you're purchasing. And I think, there's opportunities for the United States in particular to start building more here and bringing some of that stuff back to shore. So like with semiconductors, we've been outsourcing that small component for a really long time, and now it's catching up to us because we all have heard of the semiconductor shortage and the problems that it's causing. So how can we bring production back to the United States and make it more available to us? And we have the opportunity to do that, but then we have the workforce shortage.
now?
So if we do bring that back to shore, how are we going to fill those empty seats that are predicted to reach over 2 million by 2030? How are we going to bring the excitement back to manufacturing so that when kids are going through elementary and middle school, we're putting them on a track that's going to guarantee that they're going to pursue, a career in engineering and manufacturing. And it's not just the component side either. It's, everything that's getting digitized now. We have all of these opportunities for data analysts, data scientists, I think is one of the terms that I heard the position being called. So we have all these opportunities to collect all of this data. How are we going to organize that and use that in a way that is actually going to help these manufacturing companies? So we have all these new opportunities coming up with these newer technologies, but how are we going to fill those opportunities up if we don't really start convincing these kids that it's the place to be and you can have a thriving career with it? So a lot of good, a lot of bad, a lot of unknowns. And it's, we got to start having more and more of these conversations so that we can work together and solve all of them together, because it's not an overnight fix.
Yeah, you hit a lot of good points about that. We can spend all the money in the world trying to build wafer fabs or manufacturing plants and onshore stuff that's offshore. The challenge is the infrastructure. We got the infrastructure is not all here. The manpower is not
Mm-hmm.
here. The natural resources, water. Number one thing you need for manufacturing is water, and some of the areas
Yeah.
experiencing water issues, droughts, things happening. So there's a lot of hurdles that we have to get through to bring back. Are we going to bring everything back? No, we can bring back a lot to help have a kind of reallocate where we everything's manufactured, not put all your eggs in one basket. But again, at the end of the day, there is unfortunately, everything is about, especially publicly traded companies, about profitability, less liability, bring the margin down, and that's why we're in the supply chain break. That caused the pandemic, just caused that break, that rubber band to break, and it just let set free to realize that we're so lean in the world because we wanted to maximize profits and have less liability and inventory on hand, that when there's an excess of demand and countries print trillions of dollars and just give it out and people want more product, it's not there and we can't sustain it. And then
Yeah.
technology advances at the same time with going to like EV, renewable energies and process and tech, and there's such more exponential ground and components. It just takes it from everywhere, and there's a lot of bottlenecks that are happening, and it's going to take about 5 to 10 years. I mean, this decade, in my opinion, the 2020s, the roaring 20s, I'm calling it roaring 2020s because it's like 1920s, but hopefully you don't end up with Black Friday, what happened then. But these are the
Right.
type of things that come to be, is historical, but history repeats itself sometimes. But we're in this type of roaring 20s because it's the most exciting time to be in electronics. Even in our business,
Mhm.
everybody knows what I do when I say I'm electronics distribution design. It's like they never knew what that was. You sell a computer, you sell a component. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
even know what it was. Now they know, like, those chip shortage. Okay, that's where we're in. We're in that supply chain, and now everybody. Two things coming out of pandemic. People are try to be experts are is epidemiology of viruses, and then how to be a supply chain expert. So these are
Yeah.
two things that you learned in the last couple of years, because it's all you
Yeah.
read about every day, and all the news was pushed to you because the technology is pushing. And that's one thing that you said is with the education of kids is we need to start pushing more informative and exciting information to the children, the new generation, that gets them excited about the hardware, the technology, you have to also, I mean, the math side and all this type of things that creates these engineers and future leaders of the industry to give them those paths. And unfortunately, there are some issues out there we have because there is a point of, what comes for consumer side or what comes for marketing and what is really needed. And that's really that inflection
Yeah.
point of what we can do. And I s just like yourself, you're trying to spread that awareness of bringing it all back and influencing the new generations that are coming to this industry. So it's exciting.
Yeah. It's exciting and it's also nerve-wracking because, you know, we all know what happens if you don't have a strong manufacturing base. I come from a it's not very small community, but it's like a mid-sized community, I guess you could say. And, when the late 90s, early 2000s happened, we had like there was like three or four major manufacturers. I can only remember three, but I wanted to say there was one more. But like two of them completely shut down, and then one completely cut its workforce in half. And it affected our community negatively. Like we had poverty rise up, we had crime rise up. People were moving out of the city to go somewhere else where they knew that they could thrive. So it was just not a great place to be. And now that we're kind of on our way back up because we had one person come in and invest a lot of money back into our community, businesses want to set up shop in the community I grew up in. We have a new downtown area with new restaurants and new hotels that we didn't even know existed. People are coming to visit. They're excited to be there. It doesn't have a negative reputation like it did before. So, and it's just because the manufacturing companies that came in and set up shop there are helping put back into our economy, creating more jobs and offering opportunities for small business owners to set up shop as well too. Because if we didn't have that manufacturing base, small business shops wouldn't be interested in setting up shop in our community. So
Y-
it's a
y-
chain reaction.
You know what you create? It's not rocket science. I think we've done this. The U.S. has done this for over 100 years. I mean, building the industrial revolution and process, building out cities and things. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, in the last 20, 30 years, these cities started getting smaller. And some of the people moved to the big East Coast or West Coast and technology, Silicon Valley, all these areas in the Midwest states got hit the hardest because the manufacturing transferred offshore. And then
Yeah.
what happened was the Asia, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Asia and China, and especially in the last 20 years. They did what we did over 100 years ago, but in a better way because they learned how to build industrial. They did that. They brought manufacturing to certain zones, certain areas. They built infrastructure. They built out industrial zones, which brought the jobs. And within that, they built cities. They built commerce. They built this, and it just grew, and it grew. That the class just started growing because people started in real estate. People started selling in shops or restaurants and start
Hmm.
spending money, and expendable income because of working at these manufacturers happened. So they built these cities within 30 years. A country is now the most was which probably it was not even the top 10 most powerful country, now is the most second most powerful country, that would mean from revenue standpoint and GDP, and when they have the
Hmm.
people, the manpower. And unfortunately, it came to a point where, I mean, it is a political side, but it's like it's all about people think about profitability at the end of the day. They're not thinking about how the others of building the generation. Unfortunately, you're where you grew up and where your city is went through that phase. A lot of shutdowns happened, a lot of loss of jobs, people moved out, it kind of got depressed. And
Yeah.
now there is thankfully there's a lot of companies coming back and kind of just like you said, infrastructure people are coming back. But again, it's also that new workforce, or the new generation has to also have the education, has to
Yeah.
be driven, has to shown to take these jobs, and these type of jobs, manufacturing, white collar, blue collar, whatever you get into these jobs, to build the infrastructure in these cities, and revive the world to make it exciting again.
Yeah, and that's where that whole rebranding comes in, and why, marketers and tech writers or content creators are really, some of the top prioritized positions that companies are looking for. They need someone to come in and share their stories and represent their brand in an authentic way that's going to connect with people and get them proud of what they're creating. And you can't do that if you don't have the good content. And if you're not talking, other companies are going to talk over you, and they're going to take that attention away from you. So it's really important that you have a content strategy that's memorable, that's humanizing, and it gets people excited about what you're doing. Otherwise, you know, you're going to not be seen, and you're going to be forgotten, and you're not going to be successful, or as successful as you could be without that content marketing strategy. That's my opinion.
Nailed it. You nailed it. So Megan, tell us a little bit about the Mavens. All that's what you're involved in with the Mavens, and tell us a little bit about that.
So I started Mavens 2 years ago, and it was because I was sick and tired of going on LinkedIn and seeing all of these podcast conversations happening, and none of the women that I knew in the sector from my trade publication days were being invited to these conversations. So I really wanted to provide a platform for women to brag about what they're doing in the sector, and talk about their experiences and share their stories, because I still feel there's a misconception on the opportunities women have available to them in this sector. Like, it used to be really bad when I first started, but things have gotten better, and it's kind of been a slow pace improvement. And I kind of want to, put the metal to the pedal and just fast forward that pace, and get more and more women excited about this sector, because I think it's a great place to be. And there's a lot of opportunities that women can thrive in. And we need it. We need it right now because, like we mentioned before, we have this workforce gap. And, if we just only focus on half the population and ignore the rest, we're in trouble. So I'm really trying to just get women excited about it, and have women, especially younger girls, build a confidence that they might not have had before. I've been an introvert my entire life. I'm still struggling with that sometimes, but manufacturing is a great place to build up your confidence and be proud of what you're creating and be a part of something bigger than yourself. And I think women thrive on those relationship aspects of things. We tend to want to be more relationship generated than men do. So I feel like we need that more than ever in terms of getting the word out there about engineering and manufacturing. And I think women are the perfect piece to that puzzle to bring everything together.
And I think that how you worked on yourself and did that and saw that and has self-awareness to that we need to make a change and grow. You can lead by example to show others, hey, look, I was like this. I was introverted. I had this, and I saw again, I saw a weakness that I had, but I want to make a difference. And I had to work on this. And I always say put the reps in and do the things to get in front of camera, talk to people, get organized, start with one person part of my group and just expand my network and put
Yeah.
yourself where the people are at.
Yeah, and it's been really humbling as well too because some of the guests that I've had on Mavens, I've actually built really great friendships with them, which was completely unexpected, but really humbling too. And one of them actually said, you know, you created a movement, and you should be proud of what movement you created. And I never thought of it that way. I always thought like, okay, I'm going to share these stories. Hopefully, I'll inspire someone. But you know, I see people buying the shirts that I have and taking pictures of it and doing the rosy flex arm. And it's really, really humbling to see because I really just started this for fun. And just to provide a microphone for the women that I knew that were in the sector that weren't getting enough spotlights on them because they are making the changes. I'm just a content creator. That's my thought process. I'm just a content creator and I provided a platform to give these women who are, you know, doing the work and making the parts, welding the parts, give them a platform so that they can share their stories. So it's really humbling to hear that I created a movement that people are following, and I hope they continue to follow it. Uh, I did an event back in October of last year where 30 students attended, only 4 were girls. They were nervous that I had all of these presenters that were men, but I did end up having 2 women come on and present, and they said, okay, now I feel comfortable entering this sector because it is so male dominated and I didn't see anyone that looked like me. Now that I've talked to these women and they say it's fun and it's gratifying and it's so important, now I'm going to continue pursuing this as my career choice. So it's really great to get younger girls excited and confident about joining the sector.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
You're just lifting up the community. You built a platform. You're lifting everybody up. We're all humans. We're all equal, and you're just giving them
Mhm.
security. And again, you win as you lift everybody around you. You rise too, and it's not about yourself. And that's what more of us in this industry need to do. Especially, it's a very diversity. It's a very male-driven, industry. How do we bring in the more color and the women and the different perspectives, and how we can build an organization and bring in new talent to lift everybody up together. And
Yeah.
I love your vision, your perspective on it, and what you're doing. It's honorable.
So, well, thank you. And I want to mention my branding too. So, if you take a look at Mavens of Manufacturing, this is my shameless plug, by the way. If you take a look at Mavens of Manufacturing website, there's a pair of aviator goggles that are the main focus, and then I have 2 Rosie the Riveters flexing their arm. I really wanted to pay homage to the Rosie Riveter movement back in the 40s because that really opened up the door for women to come into career pathways that weren't typically meant for them. And it was at a time where it was all needed for us to come together and support one another and uplift one another because we were at war, and the women had to step out of their normal roles and come into an environment that they normally wouldn't consider pursuing just because of what the social standards were back at that. Men had their roles, women had their roles, and it really opened up the opportunity for us to keep pursuing those career pathways. And I think that's what's needed now. We all need to come together and support one another so that we can close the skills gap, strengthen our manufacturing foundation, and just uplift one another. It's all hands on deck. We're all needed. We all need to, promote the heck out of manufacturing and engineering and get that next generation excited and show them the pride that we all have working in this sector. So that's why I wanted to connect my brand to what's going on today, because I feel like they achieved that back in the 40s. And women were a high percentage back then. We were around like 42% representation back during that era. And so let's get to that point again where we have room for everyone to come join the sector and be successful.
Well, your drive, your passion, and your energy is contagious, and you get me excited. I'm
Thank you.
excited. I'm excited over this. I really appreciate, also educating my, learning and the audience, whoever listens to this, educating us about a little bit because it's about perspective, right? And the way we learn about this and how you talk is to put yourself with the people around, talk to others, understand, look at historical facts and data, and use it for present day of how do we make a difference? How do we make a change? How do we can
Mhm,
improve our lives in our social circles or our business or all every circle we're in? And today, thankfully, we have some tools like LinkedIn, where 6 million people in the industry are on. The 6 million people
mhm,
just in manufacturing is located on LinkedIn, where you can put your people are at, and you can put yourself there and connect with them, which allows us to and use and quantify these tools. Unfortunately, I think the last 2 years it's quantified dramatically, but before that it wasn't. Now everybody is, there's a lot more people on there, but also I think that's also give gateways like for people like yourself to build that brand, to build the awareness
mhm.
and create the community you're trying to do to make a difference in the manufacturing world for women in
Yeah.
manufacturing.
Absolutely. COVID really helped with that too, because I think people just got so isolated during that time that they needed an outlet to put information out. And so COVID really helped us adapt these digital tools that we have to really reconnect with one another in a different way. I still prefer human contact over, virtual contact, but it really helped us keep connected and not lose our sanity so much, because that was a hard time for all of us to just like cut off from the real world and stay isolated for as long as we were. I was very fortunate not to be in a big city like Chicago or New York, or some of the cities in Italy that they broadcasted to, where people are just yelling at each other out of the windows. And I was glad that I wasn't in that situation, because we had a little bit more freedom in the movement that we could do outside. But yeah, I think COVID had its advantages as well as disadvantages that it provided us. So,
It gives
hopefully we
you,
can
yeah. It
go
gives you
ahead.
perspective of life. It gives you perspective of
Yeah.
what's a necessity or what's a nice to have or what's a need. And it really showed a lot of people went into it and should have come out improved. But there are some others who came out and want to go back to the old ways. But again, I think it gives a lot of perspective, things of this experiences.
Hmm.
'Cause I always say a pandemic was we went into it and it forced everybody to get uncomfortable or discomfort, have a lot of discomfort. And
Yeah.
through that discomfort is where the biggest growth comes from. So if you don't take
Yeah.
advantage of being uncomfortable, going into a situation and learning and growing from it and taking that journey to come out to the other side, wiser, have more knowledge and inspire and change and make a difference. Sometimes it's like you just lost that opportunity. And that's what I tell a lot of people. It's like you got to move forward. The if you keep looking backwards, you're gonna hurt
Hmm.
your neck turning back all the
Right.
time, right? You're gonna hurt your neck
Yeah.
moving forward, so it's great. I got 2 more questions for you. 2 more I wanna
Okay.
go. First question, you make a male shirt for
Do I
your
make a
shirt?
mail shirt?
Male
Yeah.
shirt? Yeah, you do?
Yeah.
Can
I
I get
have
one of those?
yeah, absolutely. I
Maven shirt?
have Yep, I have two kinds of shirts. I have a baseball tee,
Uh-huh.
and I also have just a regular t-shirt for men and women. Some of the guys got the baseball tee too.
Okay.
Just depends on your build, I guess. And
Alright.
then I also have coffee cups and trucker hats.
Alright. Well, awesome.
The
Well,
trucker hats are one of my
I'd like
favorites.
to get one of those shirts and the hats. We could talk about that. And my final
Yeah.
question for you, the next 1, 2 years, future plans for Z Inc. What's your future plans and your set and path, what you're trying to do and the milestones and objectives you're trying to reach in the next couple of years?
So I'm really trying to expand my client base for Zink Solutions. It's funny because that brand has kind of been put on the back burner with Mavens. It comes up as a secondary topic, but I'm really just trying to expand my client base because my home life work balance is really important to me. And by having retainer clients, I'm able to pick my hours and projects and spend more time with my family. For Mavens, I'm really just trying to get the next generation, especially younger girls, really excited about engineering and manufacturing and making the sector more of a collaborative space for everyone. Because right now, I feel like there's still some areas where it's not collaborative and there's still, some negative things happening. And I want to lessen those negative experiences and increase the more positive ones. And in my personal community, my goal is to start a first robotics team with the high school because right now they do not have one. And I think that would be a great place for me to get younger girls excited about engineering manufacturing because who doesn't like robots? I do. So, and I think everybody does. And that's where the sector is going. We're seeing more and more of these automated technologies, especially with cobots and robotic arms. And it is the way of the future. So I think if I can create that opportunity, it'd be really great. And I'm actually funding a bus and getting sponsorship for a bus to take these students to IMTS this year. So I'm really
Oh,
excited to do that. Yeah.
you must be nerding out a bit and getting excited for what Elon Musk is coming out with Optimus, his Optimus robot that he's creating once he solves AI.
I am unaware of that because
Oh, you
I
don't
have
know?
to be
Oh,
honest.
oh.
I tend not to follow a lot of celebrities because they get caught up in some things that I don't agree with. But I'm gonna have to look into that because that is interesting to me.
I
I
wouldn't
kind of
say Elon is a celebrity. I would say he is a Tony Stark of the real world. He on
he
that point, he is something else.
he is. Um, I just actually saw part of a documentary on him talking about his work ethic, and he was talking about how he literally slept in his office where he worked and would just work these ridiculous hours on a week by week basis. And it went into his conversation about Tesla and SpaceX and how he was stuck between making a decision of letting one go or dividing up his investment between both companies. And it was just really interesting to see the emotion coming from him because normally when I see him, he's just got the same smile, and seeing that emotion that he had for both of his brands was really eye-opening. So I'm gonna have to look into that because I didn't know that was something he was doing. I just remember all the conversations about him buying Twitter
Yeah,
and
that's
laughing at that.
he's trying to fix, because he just, again, he's a problem solver, right? He
Yeah,
solves problems. He's the engineer. You solve a problem. He's trying to solve a problem of communication in public forums, in the public square.
yeah,
But in the innovation side of technology, it's you would, I mean, I always listen to everything he's on, and even his earnings call. They talk about things that it makes the future is bright. He's leading the charge. He's making a difference, and his passion is contagious. To like, wow, this
yeah,
is, if we can develop more like him to change the world and what we're trying to do, revolutionize space flight, all the things we're doing, reuse rockets, land them at the same spot. Who knew we can do that at a lower cost? I mean, all these things that come. It's like, wow. So it's very, the future
yeah.
is bright for all the whole manufacturing industry. We just need people just like yourself that come in and want to make a difference. The more and more people like yourself that come in the industry and build it, just create this community that want to make a difference. And you can change 100 people. One person can do 100, and just quantifies over time because you lead by
Yeah.
example. So
I would really like to have some sort of technology that records people like him, like their thoughts. Because I couldn't imagine being that innovative or inventive. Like how how do you get sleep? Because I just would assume that their mind is always just talking and going. And how do you get sleep?
special people out there, special people. Well, Meaghan, thank you so much for coming to Real Talk. It's been a pleasure to have you on. You made me excited. You give me excitement what you're doing and making a difference. And hopefully I can help you in your path to success on making a difference in the world of Mavens and your zine.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob, for having me on. I really enjoyed this time. It was a lot of fun. And, hopefully we can meet in person one of these days because I would love to continue collaborating with you as well because that's what it's
Definitely,
about. It's about coming
definitely,
together.
definitely. Well, thank you very much. And I will talk to you soon.